The Vancouver Canucks are moving on. The Nashville Predators, they're heading home. Canucks 1-0 winners in Game 6 at Bridgestone Arena. Bring on the Oilers. This is Rink Wide Vancouver. And we welcome you inside the Rink Wide studio in the lower lobby of the Wall Center Hotel. And Center really says it all. Truly the middle of downtown and the downtown core, close to just about everything from restaurants to shopping, sports and theater venues, English Bay and Stanley Park, or just a quick walk away, whether you have people in from out of town or you're considering a staycation yourself, make sure it includes the Wall Center Hotel. Jeff Paterson joined on this episode by Irfaan Gaffar. Get out of here, Predators. It's time for the Canucks and the Edmonton Oilers into round two, man. It wasn't easy. The series was not easy. Looked like overtime was looming for a second time in this battle. But Pia Suter, who had been denied a number of times throughout the night, had 5 shots on goal, and he made his 5th one count with 1 minute and 39 seconds remaining. Takes a centering feed from Brock Besser and is able to redirect that pass inside the post on UC Saros, who was terrific. And, of course, what can you say about Artur Silovs? Yeah. A shutout in an elimination game. The Canucks go 3-0 in the games played in Nashville. It was a trip they didn't want to have to make, Irf, but it was a business trip, and they got better as this night went along. It was another slow start, I thought, for the Vancouver Canucks, but really after the first period, a hockey game broke out. I know there weren't many goals, but they traded chances. They exchanged shots in the second period, and the Canucks stuck with it. And, you know, one of the themes of this series was they didn't give up much. They didn't score much, but in the end, 1 was all they needed. They beat the Preds 4-2, and we are here to break it all down on Rink Wide Vancouver, a presentation of the Applewood Auto Group. And right now at Nissan, Langley, Surrey, and Richmond, you can get a 2024 Rogue. You can lease at 2.99% for 24 months. Remember, it's all good at Applewood, and feels pretty good for the Vancouver Canucks punching their ticket to round number 2.
Oh, absolutely. And this just means we get at least 4 more games together of Rink Wide Vancouver, Jeff, you and I. So definitely looking forward to that. The game itself probably needed an energy drink at some point, maybe a little bit more than that. It was a little bit of a snooze fest. In the early parts of the game, it looked like after the first period, the Canucks weren't going to get many shots, and it was kind of going in the direction that all the other games kind of did this series. But in that third period, they turned it on. Pia Suter, you mentioned, 5 shots on net, the game-winning goal. Looked like he was going to be snake bitten by UC Saros. He had so many grade A opportunities. Elias Lindholm with 5 shots, then the penalty late in the game. So definitely a lot to dive into. But Jeff, I think we got to start with the decision to start with Artur Silovs.
Yeah, yesterday the story was the pink shirt. I think he looked pretty good in blue, quite frankly, as the Canucks, white as their road jerseys. They get the job done, whatever the case. JT Miller having a little bit of fun, and I tweeted after one period, but JT had worn the pink shirt. It was done to loosen his team up. Or if they didn't look very loose in the first 20 minutes. So maybe a little fun at practice yesterday, but there wasn't much of a carryover effect. Whatever the case, Artur Silovs, ice in his veins. This guy is all business. And, think of his contributions in this series. He gets thrown into a tough start, a surprise start in game number 4. His NHL playoff debut in a hostile building on the road, and gives up 3, but then shuts the door, and the Canucks roar all the way back. They win that one, an overtime game. He didn't have to face a shot in overtime. I mean, that's the kind of OT that a goalie likes, but that's a high leverage situation. It's about as high pressure as they come. And he didn't look like the moment was too big for him. We know about the World Championships last year for Latvia in his home country. The Canucks come back home with a chance to eliminate the Preds. It wasn't on the goaltender at all. No. 2 shutout periods. In fact, 2.5 shutout periods there. They get a bit of a greasy one and then a seeing eye shot. But he has held up his end of the bargain. And I don't think that Rick Tocchet had much of a decision to make, that Silovs provided the kind of goaltending. And even if the Canucks had lost this game, I think Artur Silovs was your game 7 starter, but we'll never know. There is a decision to make moving forward now. We'll spend a little time later on talking about the, what's next for this hockey club. But Artur Silovs, Gustav Nyquist, bats that puck onto the top of the net in the third period. Came that close, but there were some other stops there. Again, the Predators got out to a quick start, I thought, in this hockey game, forced the issue. Silovs had to be good early, had to be good through the middle stages where the shots were 13-12 in Nashville's favor. So both teams were busy. And, ultimately you need your penalty killer. You need your goaltender to be your penalty killer. That, to me, in a low-scoring series, I think penalty killing the unsung hero. If we're giving out, awards for the series as a whole, Canucks penalty killers, and again, they had to kill off 2.5. The late one by Lindholm that you mentioned, but the double minor to Brock Besser in the middle stages of the second period. And the penalty kill was so dialed in and locked in all series long. And again, tonight in Silovs was a part of that.
Well, that's the thing. Your best penalty killer has to be your goaltender. And he was their best player tonight, to be completely honest. 27 saves in that game 6. He's the 15th shutout in Canucks history in the Stanley League playoffs. That list: Kirk McLean 6, Luongo 5, Richard Brodeur, Jacob Markstrom, Thatcher Demko, and now Artur Silovs with 1. Look, the decision to make Silovs the starter, I think it was more so based on a feel. I think that Casey DeSmith is healthy enough. I think that, if you were to ask him, he wanted to play, but I think organizationally, they thought that Silovs gave them the best chance to win. Now, like you just mentioned, Jeff, we're going to go to if we were to go to game 7, who really would have known would have started that game, but we're not, so it doesn't matter. We mentioned game 1. We'll talk about that later, but I think it's the feel of the team. I think, to be completely honest, his rebound control is a lot more sharp. When he plays the puck, he gets out of the puck and goes behind the net. Also, he doesn't make mistakes when he's playing the puck. So he's not throwing passes, at guys' feet and things like that. And he's a young guy. He experienced the Latvia and all of that, but this is his first taste. And in all reality, he's just going out and making the most of it.
Well, Irf, we've done this after 6 playoff games and a bunch of the regular season games down the stretch. And as you said, at least 4 more. And hopefully there's a bunch beyond that. People know how this works. We have the fun. We're sitting here. We're on this side of the camera, but it's a show for you Canuck fans here in the Vancouver market, throughout British Columbia, and around the world, as we'll get to later on. But you know how this works. Hit us up at our Great Clips chat line. It's a presentation at Great Clips. What did you think of the night? What did you think of the series? What kind of chance do you give the Vancouver Canucks now as they advance to take on the Edmonton Oilers in round number 2? More than 4,400 hair salons throughout the United States and Canada. Great Clips, the world's largest hair salon brand, official hair salon of the National Hockey League. For more info, check them out online, greatclips.com. Great Clips. It's going to be great. You see all of the feedback channels on our screen if you are watching on YouTube or any of the social channels that we make Rink Wide available here at each and every Canuck playoff game. 1-0 is their final score. 4-2, the Canucks take care of the Predators in 6 games. They outshoot Nashville. I repeat, they outshoot the Nashville Predators 29-27, 29, easily establishing a series high for the Vancouver Canucks. The high water mark was 21 shots in Game 1 and again in Game 4. And Predators early on were doing what the Predators did throughout, throwing themselves in front of everything, blocking a ton of shots, just protecting that house, packing in on top of UC Saros. Saros had to make some stops, but ultimately the Predators continuing to sacrifice arms and legs and whatever the case, blocking a ton of shots. And Brock Besser, who had the hat trick in the game in the last time they were at Nashville, boy, I thought he had the winner on his stick. I think he probably thought he had the winner on his stick. One of the better Canucks scoring chances there with about 9 minutes to go in the third period. JT across to Brock Besser, pulls the puck to his backhand, and Saros stuck with him, got the blocker on it. Brock probably trying to get it up a little bit higher than he did ultimately, but still, that's the guy you wanted to have the puck based on the series, based on the season. That looked like it might be the series right there. But again, UC Saros doing his part to keep the Preds alive, to give them a chance. And that's going to be difficult for them. Ultimately, they don't get their goaltender a single goal in an elimination game. And, the Vancouver Canucks go 3-0 on the road in this series. They go 5-0 on the season, Irf. They won all 5 of their trips to Bridgestone Arena. Like, that defies the odds. Again, you think how well the Preds played down the stretch. One of the best teams in the National Hockey League. And the Canucks were 5 for 5 as the visitors in what can be a hostile building. I saw it for myself when I was there last weekend.
Yeah, just by that. I mean, you mentioned the 5 in this season, 3 in the playoffs. And I think that even before this game, there's a lot of people looking at going into this game kind of being like, I don't know, Nashville's got at least 1. Well, you know what? They don't. They didn't. And I think that when you look at this Vancouver Canucks team, a lot of credit has to go to them. I mean, from the Nashville Predators perspective, everything is in your favor at home. You get the brunt of the changes. You get to dictate your matchups, and, you're on home ice, so you have your fans. The Vancouver Canucks went out there and played excellent road games, albeit the one game that they won came back with the last 2 minutes, but they still won that game, and that's all that really matters. So this team can go and take care of business on home ice and continue this play that they're able to do on the road, obviously generating that same third period, take that into game one in Edmonton. I know it's a different team. I know it's going to be a lot faster. There's a lot more superstars on the Edmonton Oilers than there are on the Nashville Predators, but it could be an interesting series for sure.
As we break down the series in its totality, and again, we're looking at game number 6 here, a 1-0 win for the Vancouver Canucks. Canucks outscore the Predators 13-12. So that is how tight this was over 6 games. But what jumps out for me there is the offensive struggles of the Canucks. We know that they had trouble putting the puck in the net. Brock Besser with 4 of the 13 goals that the Canucks scored in this series. But they held the Preds to 12 goals over 6 games, or a shutout here in this one. Philip Forsberg was the only Nashville player to score more than 1 goal in this series. They had 11 different guys scored. They spread it around, but we wondered at the end, would the Canucks' depth prevail? And you look at the fact that, Dakota Joshua scored a couple in game 1, and Elias Lindholm had a couple of goals as this series, including the overtime. Suter ended up with 2. He had that tip goal that we originally thought was credited to Quinn Hughes early in the series. And Pius Suter comes up with certainly his biggest goal as a Vancouver Canuck to swing this thing in their favor. So, in the end, even though they didn't get much from Elias Pettersson and they didn't get anything from Nils Höglander, and Connor Garland didn't score in this series, and you can go down the list, there was just enough depth in this Vancouver lineup to get over the hump here and to take care of business and to advance to the second round of the playoffs. Now, they advanced to the second round in the bubble. Of course, everybody was at home watching that. Nobody in the building in Edmonton. This time they're going to Edmonton to play some real playoff hockey, but the series will start here in Vancouver. We'll wait for a start date, probably Tuesday. Just based on billing availability and the fact that the East is getting going here on Sunday. So we'll see what happens, but it'll be a little different than the bubble for these guys, Rogers Arena and Rogers Place. Those will be the 2 venues, and they will both be rocking. These teams have not met in a long time in the playoffs. They certainly haven't met in the social media age. And as much fun as it will be to see the 2 teams go head-to-head, the battle off the ice and in cyberspace, that may be where the real action is.
Well, it's funny. I mean, I think I put something out on Twitter, and it was when they went up 3-1 in this series. I go, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, but both these 2 teams are 3-1. Yes, the on ice is going to be great, but you can't wait. We know how Canucks Twitter is, and then Canucks internet, and what the memes and everything that they're able to do. But the Oilers love their team. Let's just put it that way. And, for good reason. They got some really good players on it. But as you mentioned, trying to put a bow on this game and this series, Jeff, the Canucks had 6 different goal scorers in total in this series. Yeah. So you look at it, you mentioned the depth kind of being there, but, JT Miller gets a goal, Brock Besser, Dakota Joshua 2 in the first game, nothing after that. Lindholm, Nikita Zadorov with a couple, and Pius Suter. Those are the only players that scored a goal for the Canucks against the Nashville Predators. So you're probably going to want to get a little bit more contributions from everyone in the lineup against the Edmonton Oilers. A completely different series, 2 completely different teams. I think that's one of the that we're really going to have to look at here. Edmonton a lot faster, probably. Maybe the goaltending, you're going to give this one to the Canucks. I know Skinner's been playing well, and then defensively, I think you might throw the edge to the Canucks as well. But that Edmonton Oilers offense is pretty good. So yeah, again, it should be a fun series, but do you squeak by the Nashville Predators or they beat the Nashville Predators? I kind of, if it was game 7, maybe, but
I think you have to look at it a couple of ways. I mean, the Canucks, since the All-Star break, they've struggled to generate of offense. Power play has been an issue there. Would have been nice if they had got a power play, and that's certainly something that we should probably jump into as well. But they have defended. I mean, they have morphed from this team that just lit up opponents in the first half of the season into a team that truly believes in its structure and its system, and they're hard to break down, and the Predators found that out the hard way. I mean, the Predators were one of the best rush teams in the National Hockey League, certainly in the second half of the season when they caught fire. There's a reason why 2 of the Coach of the Year candidates were in this series, although it's interesting to note as well that of the 3 Coach of the Year finalists announced earlier today, 2 are out. Only one is moving on to the second round, and that is Rick Toccet and the Vancouver Canucks. And look, I wrote a piece at Canucks Army between games 5 and 6 here and said it was time for Toccet and some of his tactics to take over here, because really it kind of felt like he had sat back, and Andrew Burnett had done the same on the other side. I don't think we had seen all that much of a chess match. And so right off the hop, from the drop of the puck in this hockey game, Lotto line started for the Vancouver Canucks. Now, Lotto line didn't do an awful lot, but what you had been doing wasn't working. Like, throw a curveball, force the Predators to adapt and adjust. And it did, because Andrew Brunette loves to start that Michael McCarron line. And he came and he had last change. So the Canucks set their line up first. And sure enough, Brunette comes back with his top line of Ryan O'Reilly. And so I thought we felt a little bit more of the chess match, obviously in a scoreless game into the 58th minute. It truly felt like chess on ice. But I like the fact that Rick Tocchet got the Lotto line out there a couple of times on occasion. He was mixing things up a little bit. And I think you just have to do that to keep your players on their toes, to keep the other team on their toes. And ultimately, it worked. And look, when I look through my scoring sheet, and I don't know about you, but like, I keep a running total of things that I think are, talking points that we're going to get to after a game. I try to write down the really good scoring chances as the night goes along. I don't track scoring chances per se, but ones that I want to get to as we recap everything. And like, my sheet is littered really with Canuck chances, way more than the Predators. Luke Evangelista had a nice chance in the first period. Artur Silovs was up to the challenge then and kind of signaled that he was into it. Forsberg rattled one off the crossbar early in the second period. And then we talked about the fact that Nyquist was able to tip that one onto the top of the net. But other than that, there were some looks. And, those frantic final seconds, I think Tyler Myers sells out and just throws himself in front of a puck. And, that's paying the price at playoff time. But really, when I look through my Canuck chances here, and again, it was a slow start. Because through 10 minutes of this hockey game, Connor Garland was the lone Canuck forward to register a shot on goal. I think they had 2 shots through the first 10 minutes, and this was more of the same from what we've seen here. But what about the Quinn Hughes chance early? Like,
Brock Besser, I thought Brock Besser tried to put that in too. I don't know if that was a pass. I think that was a shot from both of them, and they played pass. It was like, I don't know how you missed that. It's probably, he's going to say, now that it's all said and done, it was harder for him to miss that than it was to put it in, just because of his angle and where he was, and the puck just got up and went right back across the crease. But that one could have changed the dynamic of this game. I know they obviously won, but, it could have made them breathe a little easier. You mentioned the chances. According to Natural Strat Trick, the Canucks had 8 high danger chances. The Preds with 12, which is, I know Silovs had to make some big saves in this hockey game, but obviously you just mentioned your notes. The Canucks definitely did have some chances. They're crediting with the Predators with a few more.
Yeah, and Pia Suter with a couple.
Yeah.
On one hand, you're thinking, is he due? On the other, you're thinking, is he ever going to score again? But he had that rebound chance in the second period after JT came down the right side, got the shot away. Juicy rebound there, and Pia Suter couldn't bury it. And then off the end boards early in the third period. And you remember back, was I think game 1 off the end boards when Pia Suter had a chance there, and Saros was able to get side to side and flash one of those bright yellow pads and make the stop there. And I was thinking that Pia Suter might be having those yellow pads in his nightmares if this thing didn't go the way the Canucks wanted. But Pia Suter obviously had some opportunities. Tyler Myers winds up with a big slap shot there in the third period. So Saros was up to it. Besser with that chance from Miller that we talked about. Lindholm overskated that puck, was just sitting tantalizingly in the slot with about 4 minutes to go.
He was involved in this game. He was all over the place.
And in this series, really. Yeah. And when we talk about the penalty killing too, he's such a huge part of that. He takes the penalty, just up the ante there with 34 seconds to go, but the Canucks able to dodge that bullet. But yeah, look, he scores the overtime winner. That was probably the biggest goal of this series. Maybe you can argue that Saros or Pia Suter was to end it ultimately, but if the Canucks don't win that one in overtime, then the Preds are coming back to Vancouver in a 2-2 tie. And if it went the way it did the other night, then maybe they were the team that were going to have the Canucks on the ropes in this one. So Lindholm scores an overtime goal in game 4. In game 1, it was a greasy goal from distance. Saros should have stopped, but it was a goal the Canucks needed. They were down 1. And it got the crowd back into it. And
Rick Tocchet saying, this is why you acquire him right after that game. Remember giving all that, giving him all that love?
He had a good series. Yeah. Like territorially, I know the face-off, there was the one game he got
absolutely everyone did,
Yeah, I'm not saying it was a perfect series by any stretch, and it wasn't an easy series, but you think of where he was a couple of weeks ago and couldn't get in the lineup. He was hurt. We were wondering, was this guy going to even contribute? No, absolutely. I would say Elias Lindholm was a guy that pulled on the rope, plays 18 and a half minutes in this hockey game, has 5 shots on goal. So, it didn't fare so well in the faceoffs, but again, seeing a fair bit of Ryan O'Reilly on the other side, and O'Reilly's a master in the faceoff circle. The this is why they went out and got Elias Lindholm. It was for playoff time. You weren't ever going to judge him as a Canuck on the regular season and the fact that he had trouble getting traction and then got hurt. It was, could he contribute come playoff time? And is there more for that line? Yeah, I think there is. The fact that Dakota Joshua, after the opening game, really wasn't much of a factor, and Connor Garland set up a couple of game-winning goals, but didn't score himself. And this was a 20-goal scorer, one of 5 20-goal scorers in the Canucks lineup. You want more from Connor Garland, but now all these guys can exhale, kind of wipe the slate clean, and hope that a new series brings about a little bit more production, and maybe against an Edmonton team that opens it up a little bit more. Maybe there will be some more opportunities, whatever the case. I think of that line, Elias Lindholm was probably the most prominent on the score sheet, and just in terms of his contributions. And again, I come back to a penalty kill that by my math killed off 20 of 22 in the series, including a 5-on-3 in game 4, the last time they were in Nashville. And all 3 of the penalties were against the Canucks in this hockey game. So over the final 2 games in this series, the power plays were 7-2. And again, the margins were so fine. Like, there's no way that the power play should have been 7-2 in the final 2 games of this series, based on the territorial nature. So, the Canucks get hosed a little bit, maybe. They can laugh last because they win the series. And damn, give their penalty killers, all love, not just on this night, but through this series. Their penalty killing was sensational. And, those are just words that have not rolled off the tongue in these parts in a long, long time. And JT Miller made the point after game 4, last year they were giving up a goal in that situation late in the game, when the Predators got a power play, and they were able to kill that one off and ultimately win the game in overtime. And here, again, the Preds get the double minor to Brock Besser. I thought maybe that was as good as they looked all series on the penalty kill. They just gave the Predators nothing in 4 minutes of power play time there. And then, again, 34 seconds to close out the game. Canucks, just a masterful job on the penalty kill.
We mentioned special teams, and obviously we're going to talk about the power play as well for the Vancouver Canucks. But just to put a ball in the cap of that PK, 93.8% since April 10th, Jeff.
Yeah,
that's a good PK. That's top of the league PK. That is good, and that includes guys like Elias Lindholm. Guys like Dakota Joshua, guys like JT Miller. They're on Elias Pettersson. Getting involved as well. The defenseman blocking shots and being able to get there. And to be frank, it's your goaltenders, right? It was obviously, since then the Demko didn't play, so you can put Casey DeSmith there, and you can put Artur Silovs in there as guys that have helped this PK get to how good it's been. It's funny because you're going to have one of the best penalty kills in the National Hockey League going up against a power play that is absolutely going berserk right now in the Edmonton Oilers. Yeah. So
no, you're right. I mean, that right there is it's probably the game within the game, and we'll see what a challenge the Canucks are going to have. But they do go in on a high in that one facet of the game. Their penalty kill was lights out good. Again, we want your feedback. We want you to be involved here on Rink Wide. So we go to Jordy from the YouTube channel, says, J-Pat, you've been through it all. How does it feel to finally see a series win after so long? It has been a while. Again, covered the bubble from a distance, but like everybody else was on the outside looking in then. And so
2015, we were there.
Yeah, but they didn't win a series then. You go back to 2012, didn't win a series, got swept by San Jose in 2013. So, yeah, you got to go back to the 2011 run to find the last time the Vancouver Canucks won playoff series with fans in the stands. And of course, that year was Slay the Dragon, and then they advanced to beat the same Nashville team in the second round, the San Jose Sharks in 5, and what might have been when they got to the Stanley Cup final. We know how that one ended, so we won't spend a lot of time on that. Matt from the YouTube chat says, without a ton of exaggeration, I bet 4-3 will be considered a low score in the next series.
I mean, you would think, right? Just with the offensive firepower that the Edmonton Oilers have and the ability to score goals, it's there. I mean, look, Elias Pettersson, is he going to wake up and find the Elias Pettersson of old with a couple days off now, and you're playing a different opponent? Your travel is short. Everything is there for you. It's an all-Canadian matchup. All eyes will be on this series if they weren't before. Some people might not have watched this series because they thought it would be too boring or whatever. People are staying up late to watch this Edmonton-Vancouver series, and that's for sure. So definitely a lot of firepower could be expected.
Yeah, we may have 3 Canadian teams through to, and the other thing is that this guarantees a Canadian team around 3.
Final,
we'll see how things play out here. But Game 7 coming up, Toronto and Boston on Saturday night, and we know that Winnipeg is out. Robert on Twitter says, I love the fact it was a dog-eat-dog tough series, mental toughness test with 3 exclamation marks. And so, yeah, I mean, in a game, we could call it a chess match on ice, and it really was. And stylistically, I'll be curious to see what the next round looks like if the Canucks can implement their systems and keep that high-flying Oilers team at bay. But, I do think that there is some value in, Rick Toccet all season was banging that drum about non-negotiables and structure and wall work and everything else. And, for the most part, the Vancouver Canucks triumphed in a lot of areas in that regard. Was it pretty? No, not necessarily. Does it feel pretty good moving on to round number 2?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it does. And so, I think the positive reinforcement is stick with it. Don't blink late in these games. And the Canucks showed the resolve in game 4 to come all the way back. And, you're not going to do that very often, but they pulled that one out of the fire. And, even game 3 in Nashville, it got a 2-0 lead, defended well. Preds got a late goal, applied some pressure, but they got out of there with a 2-1 victory. And so, goals were at a premium in this series. And again, 12 goals for the Predators in 6 games. That tells you that the Canucks, with 3 different goaltenders and 3 different goalies, get victories in the series. There was a lot of things that didn't add up and make sense. We talked about the fact that the better team often didn't win the game on a particular night, but I do think on balance, and the shot clock bears it out, over 60 minutes in this hockey, I think the better team prevailed 1-0 tonight.
No, absolutely. And I think that third period showed, right? The Canucks came out of that second intermission break, and they looked like they wanted to win that hockey game. The first period, yeah, maybe not so much. It was kind of them feeling out each other. And we were sitting here saying that, this is going to be another one of those boring games. The game was kind of boring until you got to the third period. But Trev P says, and I want to ask you about this player alone, because there was a lot of talk when the Canucks acquired him, and that's Ian Cole. It's just Cole was very good tonight. Cole's been pretty solid for most of this series, right? He hasn't been a guy that's been too flashy. You haven't noticed him a bunch, which is probably a good thing. Maybe a couple little mistakes here and there. He plays 18:35 of ice time, 1 shot, three shots blocked, and he had a couple hits. So I think that when you look at it, it's the experience factor, and you go into this game and you have that guy. I know Frank Saravalli talked about on Canucks Conversation a few days ago that they're starting to lean on him a little bit more. In these situations, you go to the guy that's been there before, played for a bunch of teams, Stanley Cup champion. So now, they're obviously on to the next round, but I think he is obviously a big part of this room.
Yeah, and on a night when the team doesn't give up a goal, you look at the goaltender first, but the guys in front obviously doing the job as well. And look, in an elimination game, the Canucks outshoot the Predators 10-3 with Ian Cole on the ice at even strength. That tells you that he wasn't defending an awful lot. Ian Zadorov. Zadorov was one of the darlings of this series without a doubt. And we'll get to our 3 stars from this game coming up here momentarily. But just back to Ian Cole. Anytime I look at Ian Cole's night statistically, I look at his time on ice, and then I immediately go to the shorthanded ice time. And guess who led the Vancouver Canucks in shorthanded ice time again? And it was Ian Cole. Now, they only had to kill off the 2 full penalties and then the 34 seconds. So, it wasn't a heavy workload on the penalty kill, but 2.5 minutes, 2:35 of shorthanded ice time. Ian Cole leading the Vancouver Canucks. Those are hard minutes. Those are heavy minutes. Those are against the other team's best players, some of the best players in the league, and a guy like Philip Forsberg, and a guy that's won the Stanley Cup in Ryan O'Reilly, and Roman Josi, who's won a Norris Trophy and is a finalist again this year. And, again, 2 for 22. The Predators, that number is going to haunt them. The fact that they went 0 for 3 on home ice is going to haunt them as well. But the power play, it was there, and they just couldn't cash in. They did in game 5, but they couldn't here in game 6. So, Ian Cole down the stretch was a guy that I was sort of a proponent of load management when possible if they had healthy bodies. Obviously,
for this reason, maybe.
They had some injuries, though, along the way. They couldn't probably implement load management as much as they want. And, Toccet mentioned a couple of times that that's not an easy sell, that hockey players are like hockey players. They want to play, right? They don't want to sit out, and even if it is for the benefit of the team in the long term. But yeah, I think you're seeing the veteran, you're seeing the championship pedigree now. I did think that he slowed down over the final 20 games. It's a long season, and for the most part, he was healthy, and he played almost every night for the Vancouver Canucks this season. I thought over the final 20 game stretch that maybe there had been a drop in his performance, but he's found a way here to level up. And so that pairing with Zadorov, you call them the third pair.
Yeah.
But in terms of their usage and their utilization, Zadorov again up over 20 minutes in this hockey game. Not as prominent offensively, obviously, although there was a stretch there when nobody had scored. I thought, he's going to be the hero again, Irf, but it wasn't to be. Carson Soucy and Tyler Myers, they saw a lot of that Forsberg line. Like, that's a difficult matchup, and territorially and the underlying numbers, not particularly pretty for Soucy and Myers on the night. But then we talk about Tyler Myers with the selfless block of the shot and the dying seconds. Like, that's the kind of stuff you have to do to win at playoff time. So it's hard to find. Like, again, everybody knows the Elias Pettersson is struggling storyline, right? Like, you can't ignore it. There were some moments in this hockey game, but you and I both looked at each other. Was it after the first or the second when the Sportsnet broadcast had ISO footage of him? And as much as he's struggling, like, we all know that, when they just have the camera trained on him, that didn't do him any favors, I didn't think. But, for the most part, hard to find passengers. There's more guys that you need more from, without a doubt. But, in a tough playoff series where every inch, you had to fight for every inch. Again, I go back to the tweet from Robert. There probably is some real value in the guys that hadn't experienced true playoff hockey. They've got 6 games of it now.
Yeah.
And they know what's worked and what hasn't worked, and areas that they're going to have to elevate their game. And that, Elias Pettersson is at the top of that list without a doubt for the Vancouver Canucks. They're going to need more from him. And, maybe in a series that opens up and has a few more chances along the way, like maybe that plays into his hands. But, again, Pettersson, nothing. Nils Höglander, a 24-goal scorer, no goals from him. Didn't look particularly dangerous throughout the series. So you have to hope that at some point those kinds of players can turn a page for the Vancouver Canucks.
We looked at this team in this series and kind of compared it. Nashville Predators, credit to their depth guys, their lines on 2, 3, and 4, but we can honestly say that top line goes. The team goes as that top line goes. There's a lot of star power in the Edmonton Oilers, Jeff, right? You got Connor McDavid, Zach Hyman, 50-goal scorer.
Yep.
Nuge, who's been having a hell of a season, a career year last year in points. Leon Draisaitl, Evander Kane, who's a playoff monster. So if you can't get up for this series in the second round and use this time wisely, all of the Canucks, I think, Quinn Hughes probably get rest, all the injuries that everyone has, and the one wild card, Dr. Demko, we saw him on the ice at practice. Obviously, we don't know how long it's going to take. He hasn't spoken, hasn't even skated, hasn't done anything extraordinary, hasn't had any of the fast-paced drills, as Rick Toccet said, or anything like that. So we'll see what happens there, but there's a lot of firepower. So if I'm Elias Pettersson, I'm looking at this and saying, okay, we got through this series and I wasn't a factor. I need to be there for my team in this next round. And, hopefully he's able to do that. Before we
get too far down the road in the next round, of course, we're breaking down a 1-0 Canucks victory that allows them to advance in 6 games, take care of the Predators 4-2. We're delighted that Mr. Lube is back on Rink Wide, and we had Mr. Lube here with us down the stretch, and they're back here, and they'll be with us into round number 2 as well. And after every game, we're going to ask a poll question in the YouTube chat. And so our question tonight, pretty simply, is, do you give the Canucks a chance against the Edmonton Oilers? And this is based on the way that these two teams have just come out of the playoff series and the way that they are playing. So do you give the Canucks a chance now to advance to round number 3? The poll question is brought to you by Mr. Lube. Need a tire change or tire service? Mr. Lube provides no appointment tire service and sales, servicing all makes models, including electric vehicles, 16 locations in Metro Vancouver for one near you. Go to mrlube.com. All right, let's take a look at the 3 stars of this hockey game. I thought relatively easy selection when the 2 goaltenders did the things that they did on the night at Bridgestone Arena. There is no doubt that, the goalies, you see them there, but when you're the only guy that scores in a 1-0 elimination game that late, P.S. Suter is your hero. He was around the puck all night long, and so for that, we give him the first star nod. P.S. Suter is star number 1. Artur Silovs, again, first career playoff shutout. This guy's 2-1 in the series, so he delivers half of the victories for the Vancouver Canucks, and we'll see where things go. And UC Saros, who started slowly, and we kept pointing out his save percentage. He didn't face a lot of shots as the series went along, but he was really good in Game 5 and was every bit that good again here in Game 6, but hard for a goaltender when the team doesn't do anything to pick him up offensively. So Saros, the best of the Predators on their final night of the season. The 3 stars are a presentation of Greta Bar, YVR, and Fountain Tire And as we head further into spring, ask the Fountain Tire experts about their seasonal. Oh, check that. I'm getting ahead of myself here. That's the stat that stands out. But Greta Bar has been a terrific host for Canucks Army and our viewing parties. And there's going to be more road games, so more opportunities to get to Greta Bar YVR and hang out with other Canuck fans. And, if there had been a Game 7 in this series, it would have been a great place to check that out and watch that. But as it stands, this next series is going to start on home ice for the Vancouver Canucks. So games 1 and 2. And again, we think that those will go Tuesday and Thursday in all likelihood. I see a lot of chatter that Tuesday certainly to start the series, but it would make sense if they want a Saturday night game 3.
Unless they give them off, but I don't think they're going to start Sunday.
No, neither do I.
No, I don't think that they're going to turn that around that quick with the Canucks coming home tomorrow.
Yeah, Canucks are overnighting, probably turn the boys loose on Broadway for a night. Job
That's
well done.
I put that out. That's all the incentive they needed. One free night on Broadway. You're coming home on the charter tomorrow. Just eyes closed, sunglasses on. You won your first round. Don't play till Tuesday. Have at it.
Yeah. So a reminder that 3 stars of the game, a presentation at Greta Bar YVR. It's Canucks Army's home for food, drinks, and watching the game. And we'll have more details about playoff watch parties for round number 2. Join the crew at our favorite game day watch party spot, Greta Bar YVR. Vancouver Canucks are on to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. That sounds pretty good. It's been a while since they have been there. They got there in the bubble, obviously, the play-in round against Minnesota, and then they took care of the defending Stanley Cup champs, Ryan O'Reilly and the St. Louis Blues then. And we know about Bubble Demko, legend of Bubble Demko, pushing the Vegas Golden Knights. So back to Edmonton, this time with a packed building, but the series is going to start here in Vancouver, and we'll see if the Canucks can take advantage of home ice. We know the fans were so good in the 3 games that were played at Rogers Arena.
Fans were unbelievable in an empty building watching it on a screen.
You're right. Credit to the people that showed up there. But yeah, I mean, it's only going to get ramped up amped up that much more, but it'll be the same in Edmonton again. 2 Canadian teams duking it out here in round number 2. It's going to be a ton of fun. The game tonight, not necessarily a ton of fun, but result looks pretty good on the Vancouver Canucks. 1-0 is the final score. Jeff and Irf with you here. Keep the feedback coming to all the feedback channels that you see on your screen here. We want to hear from you and your thoughts. We'll get back into our listener feedback segment. We've got the staff that stands out. We'll go rink wide, worldwide, and we'll see who's checking out our program and where on this planet Earth they call home, and more about this series, but also more as we start to look ahead to round number 2, the Canucks and the Oilers. 1-0, the final score. Pia Suter, the only goal. The Canucks take down the Preds in 6. Thanks for joining us here. You've got it on Rink Wide Vancouver. Hey, Rink Wide Vancouver is a presentation in part of the Vancouver Canadians, who are back at the Nat. Catch fireworks, giveaways, Friday nooner, superstar appearances all spring and summer long. Get your tickets at CanadiansBaseball.com. 33 giveaways, a record 33 giveaways this season. The C's are back at the Nat on Tuesday, May the 7th. Full homestand that includes a superstar appearance on the 7th, a nooner at the Nat on the 10th, and a family fun Sunday on the 12th, where kids 12 and under can run the bases. For tickets, call 604-872-5232 or go to CanadiansBaseball.com. Jeff and Irf, as we break down the Canucks win over the Predators, start to set up what happens next with the Edmonton Oilers. But Irf, you mentioned the fact that what was it, 15,000 tickets sold for the viewing party at Rogers Arena tonight. I know that the broadcast dipped in at one point. There hadn't been a whole lot to cheer about or celebrate at that point. Probably some nervous energy in the building as well. I can only imagine that it erupted when Pia Suter rode to the rescue at 18:21 of that third period with the game's only goal. But do we have some video? I think we have a little bit of video of what was going on at the Rods. There you go. That's the frantic final seconds, I think.
Because that's when Myers went all out.
Yeah.
Literally.
There you go. The sound of the horn is the final buzzer in Nashville and fans celebrating. And that's only going to continue as well as far as the Canucks go in these playoffs. And I would imagine that'll become a tough ticket, just as the home games will be. And again, it's been fun. It's just been so good to have playoff hockey. Was it Gordy that asked me earlier about what it's like to have playoff hockey back? Yeah, it has been a long time coming, a damn long time, since 2015, obviously. And we know that series didn't go the way the Canucks wanted against the Calgary Flames in the first round. We'll see what happens here against the Edmonton Oilers in round number 2. Edward on YouTube says, love J-Pat's takes and will be following the Canucks second round fight against McJesus and Draisaitl down here in El Salvador. We're getting ahead of ourselves. We're not the Rink Wide Worldwide segment just yet, but we may have to put a map in Central America. Keep up the great work. Longtime fan. We thank Edward for checking in from El Salvador.
You mentioned playoff hockey.
Mm-hmm.
Pia Suter has been eating out of a straw for a couple of weeks since he got that Carson Soucy shot in the mouth.
Right.
So he's only recently graduated to mashed potatoes and fish. So yes, playoff hockey, it's definitely something. The guy's been eating through a straw. I remember Dan Hamhuis had to do that. Wasn't in the playoffs, but when he ate a puck, and he was the guy that also had to do that, the jaw wired shut this year. Connor Bedard, he fractured his jaw, wired shut there. So yeah, getting food that you're not able to chew kind of sucks. And for him, you hope it's going to get better soon here.
Yeah, I would think scoring the series winner would ease some of the pain.
Help it.
No, I mean, look, a lot of guys play through a lot of things. It was amazing that he came back into that game, no full cage.
Yeah.
Like we saw Bedard, wear the bubble right down to the end. And for Pia Suter, I mean, that's tough. Go to the front of the net, you take the Carson Soucy shot, eat it in the teeth, and for him to get back into that game and stay in this series and ultimately find a way to cash in on his 5th shot of the night, good for him. All right, let's get to our stat that stands out. I mentioned that a little bit earlier on here, and I got ahead of myself when I was telling you about Fountain Tire. The stat that stands out for me, though, and there are many, Artur Silovs with the shutout and the fact that the Canucks advanced, but again, in a game and a series that was so tight, and the Vancouver Canucks didn't have a single power play. Brock Boeser gets the double minor, gets the stick up on Jeremy Lauzon. Now, he sees Lauzon coming. It was a bit of a defensive action, and he gets the stick in the face. He did. I thought maybe it would be 2. I guess they saw that there must have been a little bit of blood there. Whatever the case, Lauzon seemed no worse for wear. And look, Brock Boeser doesn't take a lot of penalties, but, that was a Predator trying to force the issue, trying to be physical, and Brock bracing himself does get the stick up. So I didn't have a huge issue with that one, but, you're just thinking, okay, so the Canucks kill off a double minor, the next penalty's got to go against Nashville.
Yeah.
And Connor Garland got flattened on the end boards. I think it was Yossi, and it looked like there was a lot of stick involved in that and no call. And then ultimately it's Lindholm who gets called for cross-checking in the dying second. So on the night, the power plays were 3-0. Again, in this series, the power plays 22 for the Nashville Predators and 13 for the Vancouver Canucks. I mean, that's a pretty wide discrepancy there. And so in a scoreless game, an elimination game, not a single power play for the Vancouver Canucks. And really the last 2 games in Nashville, the Canucks had 2 power plays in game 4, but remember there were the overlapping ones by 4 seconds. Was it, I think Lindholm got called for interference. So we got tangled up in the linesman off a face-off, and that negated the Canucks power play. So the Canucks had almost no power play time whatsoever late in this series in Nashville, and yet they were still able to overcome that and prevail. But that's absolutely a stat that stands out, that not a single power play on the night. And look, maybe that plays into this notion that power plays early in a series as the refs try to establish control,
Yeah.
but it's tougher to gain power play opportunities the deeper you get into a playoff series.
Oh, especially when elimination time comes in. They don't want to put they want to put the whistles away. I got one. Canucks are second. There's a second team in history to win a playoff series with 3 different goaltenders, earning a win, joining the only 1972 Chicago Blackhawks when they did it. So, I mean, it's a recipe for success in this round. I think you're going to see a little bit more of a one-sided goaltending matchup in the next round against the Edmonton Oilers, and the health of Thatcher Demko is now going to be the question as we turn to the Edmonton Oilers. But 3 different goalies for the Vancouver Canucks earning a victory, the second team in NHL history to do that in a winning series.
Well, there you go. A couple of stats that stand out, a presentation of Fountain Tire, and as we head further into spring, ask the Fountain Tire experts about their seasonal car care package to keep your vehicle in top shape. Find your nearest dealer at fountaintire.com. All right. I wondered at the outset of this series. I figured the Canucks should win. I thought the Canucks would win. Didn't know how the series would play out. Every playoff series is different, but the minute Thatcher Demko goes down, that certainly threw a wrench into some things. Although, again, goaltending, when you lose your starter and an all-star, the fact that goaltending wasn't really a factor for the Vancouver Canucks is a tribute to both Casey DeSmith and Arthur Silovs, Ian Clark, the development system of the Vancouver Canucks. So, you don't want to have to go 3 deep in the first round of the playoffs. The Canucks did, and they were able to overcome that. So, again, there's a lot of things that add up that go into winning a playoff round. And, let's take a look at how many wins the Vancouver Canucks have here. A couple of weeks into the playoffs, this is a segment that we call 4 Wins. It is brought to you by 4 Wins Brewing. It takes 4 wins to advance to the next round. And there you can see the Vancouver Canucks with 4 on the board. They take care of the Nashville Predators 4-2. Of course, the Oilers dispatched the Kings in 5. So Los Angeles, I'm sure, will be antsy and ready to go as they come here to open the second round. The Colorado Avalanche sitting around waiting. And, early on, it looked like Vegas. But those 2 teams, as we do this show, are battling, and they're scoreless late in the first period in Game 6 of that series. So that's the only series in the West that is still going on. The winner of Dallas-Vegas will face the Colorado Avalanche. And then the second round is nearly set in the East. The Rangers and Carolina are going to battle. They both advanced. Florida takes care of the Tampa Lightning, and the Panthers await the winner of the only Game 7 that we are guaranteed at this point in the opening round of the playoffs, and that is the Boston Bruins and the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Of course, it's the Leafs.
The Leafs staying alive, even without Austin Matthews, grinding out a victory, William Nylander. So that series tied 3-3 with Game 7 set for Saturday night. But the Vancouver Canucks have 4 on the board. They've got that game puck thing that they do after every game. And interesting, was it the overtime? I think it was the overtime win in Nashville the last time. So their 3rd win of the series. They had been posting, the team social department had been posting who was putting the pucks.
Yeah.
But I understand that this video may have revealed a player with some sort of injury or an apparatus.
Okay. So they kind of stopped that a little bit.
At least for that night. Yes, it didn't get past the the editors.
I'm gonna do some digging and ask who did what there. That's exactly
so
it.
I'm not sure who had the puck to put into we'll see if Artur Silovs or Pius Suter, whoever, they do their little puck thing. But there you go. 4 wins brought to you by 4 Wins. And 4 Wins Brewing, a family-owned and operated outfit on Delta. Check out the 4 Wins Brewing tap room and kitchen located in the Tilbury area, serving beers, burgers, and their famous tacos every day from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. I'm sure a big celebration there as the Canucks take care of the Preds. And 4 Winds Brewing, also home to the 4 Winds Light Lager, a crisp, clean, and easy-drinking beer. A beer for everybody. Perfect beer for before, after, or during the game. 4 Winds Light Lager. Ask for it at your local liquor store or have some delivered right to your door through the online shop at 4windsbrewing.ca. And if you need to load up for round number 2, keep our friends at 4 Winds Brewing in mind.
Absolutely. I mean, stats just get poured in after games like this from different social channels. NHL PR putting out something. Artur Silovs, 23 years and 42 days. He's the 14th rookie goaltender in NHL history to record a shutout in a potential series clinching game. The only others to do so in the past 30 years, Jeff, are Akira Schmid, Matt Murray in 2017, Carey Price in 08, and Ilya Brizgalov in 2006. So Canucks are making history. They have been all season long with the stats that guys like Quinn Hughes are putting up, historic seasons from JT Miller, franchise-setting seasons by this team as well. So it's interesting. You know what else was interesting? Looking at the betting odds before this game, because when you looked at it, if you wanted to make some money and you were a Canucks fan, this segment obviously brought to you by Bet365, our proud partner of Sekeres Price, Canucks Conversation, and us right here, Jeff, I on Rink Wide Vancouver. Open account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code VANBONUS. So the Canucks were plus 105. They were actually the underdog in this hockey game. So I know a lot of people thought that this team was going to be a lot closer than people thought. A little bit of money on the Canucks. You could have won some there. The Nashville Predators, obviously the home favorite. It's going to be interesting when we look at the Edmonton Oilers against the Vancouver Canucks. Early lines haven't come out yet on Bet365. I was just looking. But when you think about it, the Edmonton Oilers are probably going to have the edge in the series. I do think game one, the Canucks will be favored at home, though.
Yeah, I mean, you come back to this idea that the Canucks were 27-9-5 on home ice.
Yeah.
Like they really were a dominant team, even though they struggled a little bit against the Predators and only won one of the 3 games played at Rogers Arena. Of course, we know the regular season story against the Oilers, the 4 wins. Plug for 4 wins. There you go. They were 4-0 against the Edmonton Oilers. But 3 of those were so early before the Oilers made the coaching change. McDavid was playing through something. But then they went into Edmonton the weekend before the final week of the regular season, and Casey DeSmith in goal, got the lead, were able to hold off the Oilers. McDavid didn't play that night. I get that. And that absolutely is part of that story. But the Canucks played pretty well. Those are the things that Rick Toccet's, I'm sure, going to try to build off for hockey clubs. He prepares them for the Oilers. But I think so much of this is going to come back to discipline, staying out of the penalty box, because the Los Angeles Kings were one of the best penalty-killing teams in the National Hockey League over the bulk of the season and just got absolutely obliterated by that Oilers power play. So, the first key to killing penalties is don't take them at all, and we'll see if the Canucks can be a disciplined bunch. I mean, McDavid by himself is likely to draw a few just with his speed, but the Canucks are going to have to do more. I mean, clearly you saw in this series against Nashville, if you're held to the outside on the perimeter, it's hard to draw a lot of penalties there. So how many times throughout the year did we hear Rick Toccet urging his guys to get to the inside to try to make things happen there? I do think that that's an area that the Vancouver Canucks are going to have to be a little bit better at against the Oilers than they were against the Preds.
Absolutely. A lot of people running to our Mr. Lube poll on YouTube, our YouTube chat. Do the Canucks have a chance against Edmonton? 84% with yes. Obviously, there's a chance. I don't think the Edmonton Oilers are going to sweep the Vancouver Canucks here, but Hell of a Shot says, I have a feeling this playoff series is going to generate a ton of hate between these two teams that will drag it into next season. I think it will too, Jeff. I think that this, with the characters involved, I think definitely for sure.
There are a lot of people that dump on this playoff format, right? Mm-hmm. But this playoff format is designed to create playoff rivalries. Yeah. Now, there's no guarantee. As much as people seem to think that Gary pulls strings there at the league office. But this is exactly why you don't read and you stay within your division, because now you get 2 Canadian teams, 2 fairly close geographic rivals that haven't seen each other in the playoffs. You got star power for days with McDavid and Draisaitl and Miller and Hughes. And if Paterson can get his level up, you want to include him in that conversation. And the season that Zach Hyman has had, Evan Bouchard, breakout year. There is just so much individual talent here that it has the makings to be a ton of fun. I just don't know stylistically what it's going to look like, because I think the Canucks defensively hope that it looks a fair bit like it just did against Nashville, and that they can up their offense just a little bit more so that it's not such a slog fest. I do hope that the Canucks find some ways, and look, this league's so heavily scouted, that the Oilers have been watching closely. They knew that they would play the team that prevailed in this series. They saw the Predators block a ton of Canuck shots. Is Edmonton going to pay that price? Are you going to have the same buy-in from the Edmonton Oilers that Andrew Brunette was able to get from his team to block all those shots? Or does that present an opportunity maybe for the Canucks to get a few more pucks to the net, test Stuart Skinner? Every year, Stuart Skinner has looked like a weakness for the Edmonton Oilers. But
not this year.
No, I mean, this is a guy that I think has continued to work on his craft, and there's going to be pressure on him, but there'll be pressure on both goaltenders, obviously. So if Thatcher Demko is in and healthy, you'd say, hey, wide edge for the Vancouver Canucks. But as the Canucks go down their depth chart, then, does that level the playing field a little bit? Probably. I think it does. But
you've got built-in hate from a couple members of the Canucks already, and Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov
for sure
on the Edmonton Oilers there. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. A lot of people are saying that, Zadorov against McDavid should clobber McDavid and things about Evander Kane and things like that. It's going to be an interesting one because Corey Perry also plays for the Edmonton Oilers. He's an absolute pest. He's won a Stanley Cup and been to 3 consecutive Stanley Cup finals and lost them all. And Jeff, to be completely honest, going into this series against Nashville Predators, Canucks were the favorite, obviously, for good reason. Going in against the Edmonton Oilers, the Canucks aren't going to have any pressure on them. They're not supposed to beat the Edmonton Oilers. The Edmonton Oilers is the team in Canada that David with Draisaitl, with all the superstar talent, you should be winning. You should be making it to the conference final. Why haven't you been to a cup final yet? So that dynamic of the conversation is going to be interesting as well. So there's not going to be as much pressure as people may think on the Vancouver Canucks to get by the Oilers.
And look, there's not a single guy in that Canuck locker room. There's nobody in the organization that is going to exhale at this point and say, all right, one around, all's good.
Yep.
But I do think that there's a clear demarcation point, Irf, that this team, with the season it had to win a round.
Yep.
What happens from this point forward? I want to see them go in there and, hopefully match up against the Edmonton Oilers and give it a great fight and, may the best team win kind of thing. But if the Canucks bow out against the Oilers, the fact that they got out of the first round, they gave the fans those home playoff dates, and now they're going to give them more at Rogers Arena. They had to win a playoff round after a 109-point regular season with the star power they had.
Yeah.
But you're right. With the Oilers, this is a team that's had the playoff failures. They're built to win the Stanley Cup. And so even though the Canucks won the division based on Edmonton's crappy start to the season, cost Jay Woodcroft his job, I'm with you. The Canucks have home ice advantage in the series, but I would think would be the overwhelming underdogs as things get going here. But maybe that's a good position for the Vancouver Canucks. Take a little pressure off them and, can they protect home ice? Can they send it back to Edmonton and, have the Oilers feeling a little bit of heat? Hey, we'll see how things play out with the first couple of games here.
I really don't care. I say this. It's nothing like a one anthem playoff series, Get the one anthem going.
Billy Stringman, what was his name?
Billy Stringman was stringing along the anthem there.
Oh, my goodness, you had all the jokes, but I wasn't sure they were ever going to get to an opening faceoff. And come on, we've got this deep into Rink Wide here tonight, and we haven't mentioned Nicole Kidman with the
yes, trying to go Preds go, but didn't.
I'm not sure about waving the towel exactly.
The catfish went on the ice way too late into the game. Imagine having that wrapped to your pants all night long or wherever you took it to get it in. But it's I mean, look, the Canucks are through. You and I will be here for at least 4 more games, so that'll be awesome, giving the people what they want. So obviously, as always, thank you for getting in and getting involved. And
well, hang on, you sound like we're wrapping things up.
No, definitely not.
We haven't. Because we mentioned Edward was checking us out from El Salvador, but let's get to Rink Wide Worldwide and see what we've added to our map here. And you can see a couple of pins there in the Far East, Korea and Hong Kong. And I want to shout out Rick in Chicago, who I met when the Canucks were in Philadelphia a bunch of years ago. They were practicing in Philly, and I think he was going to med school in Philadelphia. He came out to practice at Penn University. We had a quick chat, have gone back and forth on social. He's now working in Chicago, but he says he checks Rink out. So we salute you, Rick. Thanks for your support. And again, continuing to try to add these pins as we go. And we want to hear from you on any of our feedback channels. Just drop us a note. Would love to hear as we move into round 2. We want to continue to fill up the map. So where are you checking out Rink Wide? Where are Canuck fans located around this planet Earth? And we'll drop a few pins on the next couple of Rink Wide episodes. So please take a moment. And I also ask, because I'm just curious too, wherever you are, what time is start time for a standard 7 o'clock Pacific time face-off? So are you watching in the middle of the night? Are you watching early the next day? Do you record them and watch them at your convenience? How do you consume Canuck hockey wherever you are wearing your Canuck colors?
To your point, Jeff, Rink Wide World, this is amazing. So I just put out where are you watching. Don't say Yaletown in our YouTube chat, okay?
Yeah.
Makati, Philippines was the first answer.
Okay.
The second one was Winnipeg. Third, Ontario. Fourth, Edmonton. 5th Pullman, Washington. So no one's watching from Vancouver right now, which isn't a bad thing, obviously, but this is why we do this. Rink Wide Worldwide. Thank you very much for watching. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're still waiting for official confirmation, but there's enough clues out there that the thing's going to get ramped up again on Tuesday. Isn't Pearl Jam in on
Saturday, and Monday?
Monday. Okay.
So Sunday would be a stretch.
Right. And Sunday was going to be game 7 if required. So the roadies are probably happy that they don't have to truck all the stuff in and out. They can probably leave the stage set up, I would imagine now, because they would have had to strike it for a game 7, but they can probably, with shows on Saturday and Monday, and get the rock and roll out of the way and get back to hockey on Tuesday. And we would think Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday would make sense. Just the hockey night would want the Saturday game, and then probably Monday in Edmonton for game number 4. But whenever that schedule is released, certainly, and it may come later tonight if, in fact, Dallas can take care of Vegas, and we have, the Final Four in the West set. It may have to wait a little bit, but whatever the case, you're going to see. It won't sneak up on you. It won't come as a surprise. You will see the start dates and the schedule.
It'll be announced later tonight, probably, or tomorrow.
2.
Yeah.
Well, as we wrap things up here, and we just look back at a night that, boy, you had to be patient. It was a waiting game, obviously, and the Vancouver Canucks didn't blink with a rookie goaltender between the pipes. Artur Silovs, certainly one of the stories of this series. Pius Suter comes through. Just as we step back, when you look at the series as a whole, who is the best Vancouver Canuck?
Oh, probably Quinn Hughes. I mean, he was in all over the place. I know he's getting banged up, but I mean, look, Artur Silovs, right? When he played in his very short time, he definitely was.
Brock coming through with a hat trick and 4 goals. Yeah. I mean, I think would have put an exclamation point on that question had he been the guy that scored the winner tonight. But he had a fine series, and the hat-trick game obviously scored the winner in game number 3, so it was good in Nashville.
JT's always JT.
Yeah,
he's always involved.
Absolutely. Yeah. We talked about Lindholm coming through and the reasons that they picked him up. Anybody's list of who needs to step up is going to start with Elias Pettersson. We get that. I think there's room for improvement, obviously, from Höglander. Dakota Joshua tailed off, I thought, as the series kind of went along. He got off to such a good start, and you thought he's announced his arrival here. And it'll be interesting. I mean, they went with the same 12 forwards throughout. Podkolzin got down to Abbotsford, so Nils Aman is the only healthy forward. I don't see him drawing in.
I don't think so.
Did Teddy Bluger and Sam Lafferty and Phil DiGiuseppe part of the penalty kill? Obviously, Bluger is as well. So
Nikita Zadorov had a great series.
Zadorov definitely had a good series. I mean, look, you don't win a playoff series without a number of candidates. Yeah. But they'll need more. We listed off 3 or 4 there. The list is gonna have to double if they're going to hold their own and find a way to keep McDavid in check and ultimately to hold that Edmonton power play under control. And I'm not sure you can hope to slow the Oilers power play. I'm not sure that you're stopping entirely.
No, absolutely not. And look, I think that the message from Rick Tocchet to his Vancouver Canucks team now is, we won a round. Why can't we go beat the Edmonton Oilers? We're not a favorite in this series. No one expects us to win. So you go with that mindset. Yeah, you won the division and you played so well all year and you did all of this. And people thought you're going to, at one point, you're going to be the President's Trophy. At one point when we did a show, I believe they had the 3 leading scorers in the NHL after that Islanders game. I don't think we did the game, but the 3 Islanders scores, they were all 3, 1, 2, 3 in scoring in the NHL. So the Canucks have the talent to do it. And I think now it's almost an underdog type of mentality, right? Against this Edmonton Oilers team that's supposed to go and win the Stanley Cup. So that's the mindset that this team should have, that they can go up and swing with the Giants that are Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl.
Second round playoff hockey here in Vancouver. It's been a long, long time. Already looking forward to it. And the battle of 2 Canadian teams is going to be a ton of fun on and off the ice, and a chance to watch Connor McDavid. I know it's not fun to play against Connor McDavid, but just from a spectator standpoint, to see him at playoff time do his thing, probably worth the price of admission if you're one of the ones that's lucky enough to have a ticket for games 1 or 2. And as far as this series goes along, Rink Wide's going back out on the road. That much I know for sure. Our commitment to cover this series. We didn't go back for game 6 in Nashville, but bags will be packed again, and we'll come your way after games 3 and 4 from Rogers Place in Edmonton after the series starts here at Rogers Arena. So already looking forward to another trek here on behalf of the program and do what we did from Bridgestone Arena. So you're going to have to hold down the fort for games 3 and 4.
I'm excited.
Did
It'll
a
be
fine
great.
job without a doubt.
Thank you.
But yeah, I'll be in studio with you for games 1 and 2. And can't get here quickly enough. But again, the Canucks can probably use a little bit of a breather here, taking care of the Predators as they did in 6 games. All right. For the guys that are working hard behind the scenes, you don't see them, but you see their handiwork, Mike and Jacob back there in our producer's booth. We thank them, certainly, and we look forward to continuing to work with them. And for Irf here and the guests that you brought on board, Brendan Morrison. We had Eddie Lack there when I was away in Nashville.
Yeah, we'll get a couple more.
Thank
we'll
them for their
change it up,
contributions. Yeah, we'll see what we're able to come up with as this series moves along. But you know the drill by now. We'll be here moments after the final buzzer, breaking down and talking about everything that we saw, that you saw as well. So we're kind of making it a gathering point after each and every one of these Vancouver Canuck playoff games. For Applewood Auto Group, our title sponsor, and we thank them for their support as well. It's not possible without our partners. For Irf, this is Jeff. Again, the final score one more time. The Vancouver Canucks won. The Nashville Predators, no score. The Canucks take care of the Preds 4-2. They're off to the second round that we think will start on Tuesday, and that's when we'll be back with our next episode of Rink Wide Vancouver.